is Leah Cooke, and I'm a freshman at the University of Connecticut. Welcome to the podcast titled Beyond the Books, which is composed of 3 different podcasters who will all explore different aspects of education. I hope you've previously enjoyed the podcast you have listened to in our series, but today, in my podcast, we are going to be diving deeper into the pros and cons of participating in extracurriculars as a high school or college student. I've been a part of the education system as a student since 2011. That means that I have been a student for over 13 years, meaning I am exhausted. All jokes aside, education has always been a huge part of my life, whether that was my attendance, my actual grades, or my involvement within the school. Today in my podcast, we're going to be focusing on involvement with extracurriculars throughout someone's educational story and how it benefits them. We will also dive deeper into both the pros and the cons of extracurriculars, and we'll highlight the fact that there are many, many more pros than cons. Today I'll be interviewing one person who had their own previous history within the educational system. The person I'm interviewing is John Nemzik, better known to me as Gramps. John Nemzik was a middle school teacher who taught grades 6 through 8 for all of his teaching career, and John had a direct understanding of how extracurriculars can build foundations for students in their lives. As I was growing up, and also now, my grandfather has told me many, many stories of how his teaching career has shaped his life. Some of these stories root directly from participating in extracurriculars. He was a teacher, so he volunteered his time after school to participate in different sports or clubs, and he saw how it benefited the students. My idea for this podcast is to get conflicting ideas of how extracurriculars affect students. For example, I will get a view of how extracurriculars affected middle school students from John Nemzik, since he mainly taught middle school, and then I'll share my own personal experience of how extracurriculars affect high school students since I recently graduated, and I'll also share my brief experience with extracurriculars in college. Before the interview, I will explain some of the pros and cons of having extracurriculars throughout one's educational career. One of the main pros for joining extracurriculars is to find a sense of belonging in a certain community. The article that I used to find this information was from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, where they published their article titled Extracurricular Activities, the After School Connection. Many people join extracurriculars based on their personal interests, meaning that people within these extracurriculars will then have some of the same personal interests. This allows people to gain many friendships that they may have not found without joining these extracurriculars. For example, one of the main extracurriculars that I participated in throughout high school was volleyball. Once I was on the varsity volleyball team, I created bonds with my teammates that I never would have met without volleyball. Some of my closest friends were freshmen and sophomores because they were also on the team when I was a senior. This made the large high school that I went to seem much smaller because anywhere I went, I always saw a familiar face. Also, the opportunity for students to create friendships also benefits their social skills. Joining these extracurriculars forces people to go out of their comfort zone most times and interact with new people. For many people, including myself, creating new friends is such a hard task. While I feel as though I'm pretty outgoing, going up to a random stranger and asking them, "Hey, let's be friends," is almost an impossible task for me. Actually, one specific example of how joining extracurriculars made me feel like I belonged and allowed me to create friendships was joining a sorority here at UConn. When I moved onto campus in late August, I knew one person, one singular person, my roommate. My roommate Caitlin Bigham, who I had previously met once before moving in, was technically my only friend on campus. The first few days at UConn were nearly impossible for me, feeling so isolated and the loneliest I've ever felt before. Then, on the first day of school, as I was walking to class, I saw that all the sororities wore their shirts that advertised their sorority that they were in. As the day went on and I continued to see the hundreds of girls with their shirts on, I realized that going through recruitment might be a great thing for me. The minute that I walked back into my dorm room, I sat immediately down at my desk and signed up for recruitment. While going through actual recruitment might have been the hardest and most tiring thing that I've ever done, at the end of the week, I received a bid from Alpha Chi Omega. This was the sorority that I hoped to receive a bid from since my brother's girlfriend was in it, and I know her and a lot of her friends. On bid day, which was when all the new members of the sorority get to go hang out and celebrate with their new lifetime members, I met so many people who I continue to be friends with here at UConn. Now, as a lifetime member at Alpha Chi Omega, I see so many familiar faces when walking around campus, and I'm constantly greeted with a smile and a wave everywhere I go. Joining Alpha Chi Omega here at UConn has made the campus of 20,000 people feel so small and feel like a home to me. In many cases with extracurriculars, teamwork is needed, and in many cases, teamwork eventually evolves into leadership. Each club or organization has leadership posts which allow younger generations and students to get involved with having responsibility within an organization. For example, when I participated in my club volleyball team, I was titled captain my sophomore year and my junior year. And my senior year, I unfortunately couldn't play due to an injury, but my sophomore year and junior year, I became such a more outgoing and powerful person. And I felt like I had so much more confidence in myself because I was appointed this role and I knew that I had to fulfill what my coach wanted me to. Before we continue on to the next pro, I want to just plug our sponsor right now, which is Time Tree Calendar, and it is an app that you can find on Google Play Store or Apple App Store. And personally, I use it every single day. While I do have an actual physical whiteboard calendar in my room, I love having the Time Tree app on my phone because then anywhere I go, I can always see my calendar. So I can quickly write things down if I just see something and know what day I need to do it, or if I want to put on my work schedule or my breaks or my vacations. I can just put it all immediately right into my phone without having to wait until I get home or without a pen and paper, write it down. It just is super convenient and it makes it a lot easier for me to add anything that I want to my schedule. Another huge benefit of joining extracurriculars is the fact that they make many students have a grade point minimum they must keep to stay involved with that extracurricular. In many cases, high school and collegiate level sports will require their athletes to uphold a certain grade point average. While many athletes do put their sports before their grades, which again is a horrible idea, the minimum requirement forces them to keep up their grades. St. Johnsbury Academy published an article titled Why Extracurricular Activities in Sports Are So Important, which dives deeper into the talk about how extracurriculars affect a student's effort in their studies. Many schools offer after-school help or office hours for students who feel as though their sports and academics are interfering, and they receive the help that they need. Many students who need help with their classwork do not go and get the help that they need due to possible embarrassment. This all gets ignored when one is a part of a certain club or a team that has a grade point minimum, since it's forced by the coach or the head of the club for their members to get help. This makes it so much easier for the students to go get the help because they're not as embarrassed because it's literally forced. The last pro we'll be highlighting in today's podcast before our interview with John Nemzik will be the fact that extracurriculars benefits a student's time management skills. Many people claim that extracurriculars can crowd up a student's schedule and make them very overwhelmed, but this will only occur if the student is not properly taught how to manage time. When extracurriculars are immersed in a student's life at a young age, they begin to figure out how to balance their time. Also, when they're younger, parents are more responsible for making sure that students stay on top of their work and extracurriculars. Meaning, if parents allow students to become familiar with the idea of having a busy schedule at a young age, then as time moves on and they become older, time management is second nature to them. Chitra Reddy wrote an article titled Advantages and Disadvantages of Extracurricular Activities, where she mentions that a con of extracurriculars is a busy and overwhelming schedule. But as I stated from previous articles, having a busy schedule is actually a good thing. Next, we move on to our interview with John Nemzik, who explains firsthand how extracurriculars benefited him and his school. How did you work in education, and then when did you work in education?
I worked in education starting in 1969.
What ages did you teach?
Started off with 7th and 8th graders and 6th graders, and I ended up at the 5th grade level back when I retired in 2001.
What do you think your favorite grade to teach was?
Oh, there's no question. 6th grade was my favorite. 5th grade was good, but 6th grade probably would be my favorite. And I did not like 7th and 8th grade simply because if you had some bad kids that were behavior problems at the 7th and 8th grade level, they were really bad. The good ones were really, really good, but usually you got more bad ones than good ones. They're tough to teach because of the behavior problem.
Was there anything super special about the 6th graders that you liked?
Well, they were young enough not to be that wise guy type kid, and they listened. They didn't talk back. They appreciated good education subjects. They used to like to read. It seems as though the 7th and 8th graders, as they got older, got a little bit more cantankerous. They didn't care for this. They didn't care for that. All of them were like that, but I like the 6th graders because they fit in just perfectly. Behavior, enjoyed education.
Yeah, I kind of agree because I feel like when I was in 6th grade, I was kind of like afraid to say anything. So you kind of just paid attention to class and enjoyed the class instead. But then once you're in like 8th grade, you think you've ruled the school. So then you do whatever you want.
Oh, the other thing regarding choosing the 6th graders over the 8th graders, we had class systems, like you would have an A class, which were the smarter kids, and then the regular, like the B and the C. And then I had a couple of D classes that were behavior problems and their learning problems too. They were not only fresh, it was very difficult to reach them. A lot of people like teaching those kind of kids because they were hard to get to. They just didn't want to listen. But if you had the knack for it, you'd be very very pleased if you succeeded to get to them, which was a hard thing to do.
Yeah, in my school, they put us all in, like, all of our classes were kind of a mix. So I would be partnered with those people and I'd have to teach them myself, I think. In most of
Oh
it
boy,
was ridiculous, but it was kind of funny sometimes because I feel like I was an eighth grader trying to teach the same eighth grader science, and the teacher would just like hope that I could do it because they couldn't do it.
right,
Yeah. Okay, so
right.
next question is, were extracurriculars a big thing at the school that you taught at?
I guess you wouldn't say a big thing, but I enjoyed them because the extracurriculars that I was involved in were basically sports. I used to do softball in the spring, and in the fall I would do flag football.
Mm-hmm.
The girls didn't play flag football. I don't think I had any girls. It was all guys. But the softball teams were girls and boys.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to enjoy one of them more than the other, I think I enjoyed teaching the softball because it was mixed.
Yeah,
The girls really they liked it
mm-hmm.
because they could compete with the boys.
Do you think like the team would bring you guys as like a class like together more and make you feel like closer friends? Or like
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there was a lot of camaraderie and competition, and they enjoyed it. We really had a good time. It wasn't you weren't really trying to kill the other guys and win and all that stuff. It was just a lot of fun.
yeah, so
A lot of
basically
fun.
you guys just did it to have some enjoyment outside of the classroom, but as a group of students.
Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, next question is, do you have any kids of your own?
Yes.
Okay.
Two of them, two girls. They're a little bit older right now, but yes, I do.
And then when they were younger, did they participate in any extracurriculars throughout?
Yes, they did, but they didn't participate in sports, which it was partially my fault. You know, I should have had a basketball hoop in the backyard so that they could play basketball, or I could have fostered it by taking them to various games. Although we used to go and watch sports, but I didn't push it. They did the stuff that they were interested in at the school. Time.
I know that they both did dance, right?
You're right.
Yes. They had.
Yeah, they enjoyed that. That was very, you know, my wife was instrumental in getting them into that because a lot of their friends were doing it, so they wanted to do what their friends were doing.
Do you think that like them participating in like dance or any other school like sanctioned things like made them have a better time at their school because they knew these they knew the kids that they were doing all these extracurriculars with?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to diversify. You can't just do school stuff. You have to do extra stuff, like you said, the extracurricular
Hmm.
activities. Absolutely, yeah.
And then, did you see any potential cons in participating in extracurriculars or no? Anything like that? Like, or do you think that there are like
No.
majority a lot of like positives in participating in
Oh
extracurriculars?
yeah. All positives. Yeah. I don't think it was a hindrance or a negative. Absolutely not. It was a lot of fun, and the more they got involved in, the better it was.
Yes, exactly. And then, when I was younger or like even in high school, did you see any benefits in me particularly when I participated in extracurriculars?
Oh gosh, I mean, I don't know. Like when you were doing pottery, was that extracurricular?
Yeah, I did that in like the early stages of high school.
You really loved it. And your brother did too,
Mhm.
as I remember.
Yeah.
That was really great. Yeah, that was super.
Yeah, and then like even when I played volleyball, like obviously.
Exactly. And of course, when you were playing sports, like I remember the softball, you played softball, so that was great too.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so I think
A lot of
over
positives.
yes.
Gives you a good sense of yourself too. A lot of confidence builder.
Yes, I agree. I think that when you like involve yourself in a team or like give yourself a chance to do same things other than school, you kind of can like see how you act around others and like see how you act in different environments.
Exactly.
I want to thank all of you for coming to my podcast today and my previous podcast in the series and listening to me and my interviewee talk about all the positive effects that extracurriculars can bring to one's educational career. I hope that today's talk influenced you to get involved within your school or community, no matter how big or small the commitment is.